Like I'm going to give up my filet.
Good evening and welcome to the school board meeting for July 8th, 2008. If I could ask the superintendent to please take the roll call.
Regarding attendance, please, Helen Maldini, Newington representative. Lisa Sweet.
Here.
Leslie Stevens.
Here.
Dexter Legg.
Here.
Sherry Hamgarity.
Here.
Steve Bartlett.
Here.
Brendan Restano.
Here.
Mitch Childman.
Here.
We have Jean Frisbee this evening taking notes for us.
Here.
Steve Zadovich.
Here.
Ann Walker.
Here.
Kent LePage.
Here.
Rebecca Emerson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to offer a moment of silent reflection if anyone you have anything to say this evening about that?
Just would like to mention that Tony and Ed O'Connell, who are employees with the school department, as custodians and maintenance and security, they lost their father this week. John O'Connell was a longtime resident in Portsmouth, so we want to be remember them.
Okay, thank you. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of June 24th? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Corrections, amendments, discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, thank you. A motion to approve the minutes of May 20th? So moved.
Second.
Any discussions? Conversations? Yes, Rebecca.
After call to order, the very last sentence of the second paragraph says the three options were based on projected student enrollment needs, in parentheses, and that's not correct. The three options were based on the program and not student population.
Based on the school program. Okay, so noted.
Please.
Yes?
Could you just add projected student enrollment needs and program?
The three options have been discussed back and forth.
Right here. May 20th.
But we're not taking in, we haven't had the demographers come in and talk, and it was based, the JCJ was very clear that it's, each grade has this number of classrooms and then the number of students allowed per the teacher contract, and that's where they came up with the fluctuating number from the low sixes to 696.
360 and 630.
I just wanted to comment that the minutes are for a work session, not a regular meeting.
Okay. Sherry.
I'd just like it noted that Kent and I both did show up, even though we were a little tardy. I was about 4 minutes, and Kent showed up shortly after me, so it wasn't like we were absent.
Okay. Anyone else? So I guess we've noted the suggested changes, but we're not necessarily changing it. Unless you want to vote on it, because you had an issue with the change?
We looked at a lot of demographic studies, though they
talked
varied
about demographics.
greatly.
Right.
There's still minutes.
Any motion? I mean, we have a conversation. Are you saying you'd like to change it, or just?
I'm
to
saying that
note it?
these minutes aren't correct in my recollection of the work session. Is that they've been very clear throughout this whole process that they've been based on the program, and that's how they came up with that number,
Program, meaning the 6 teams, that's what you're saying.
meaning the teams and then the
Fact that we have
number
6 teams
of
and
classes for each,
Number of classrooms per team.
per grade, and
Right,
then
that's how they've derived the 636 to the 696.
right, and not projected student enrollment.
Correct, that's true. That is correct. Okay. All in favor of accepting as amended?
Well, wait, I'm sorry,
Okay.
can we be clear? So I hear Kent saying these are work session notes.
So,
So what do you mean by that?
yeah,
That-
do we?
We just
Doesn't
entered
matter.
into that with Kathleen, and we're waiting, I mean, she is given a template, is that correct at this time, Dr. Lister?
That's correct.
And there are, in work session minutes to follow the letter of the law, is that you have to have those present, those participating, and the topics. Is that
That's
kind
the
of what you
minutes
were?
that we talked about.
The minutes
last
that we had in
meeting.
that discussion with Kathleen 2 weeks ago?
Okay.
Last week, I'm sorry. So that, and again, it's new ground for the school board, but it seemed like as long as you put the topic in it, and this was a televised one, or not televised,
Right, it wasn't
videotaped.
televised.
videotape.
Right, and put up online.
Simul, whatever they call it, online.
Well, I think if we just remove that last sentence,
Personally, I have no problem either way, so you want to have what's fine.
Just remove the sentence, I guess.
Let's get on with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're
Please.
splitting hairs at this.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess what we're going to have to do, if you want to have it removed, is you're going to have to make a motion, we're going to have to vote on it.
okay, then I would like to make a motion that that last sentence that says the 3 options based on projected student enrollment be taken out of the minutes.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? I see none. All in favor of accepting the amendment?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No opposed. Amendment passes. Going back to the original motion to accept the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Dr. Lister, communications.
3 items, please. There's a thank you note from Diana Anderson for inviting her and her family to the reception that we had. She retired from Little Harbor School this June. Second, there is a list of committee assignments that board member Rebecca Emerson asked for. We've given that to the board before, but that does list everyone who's on each committee. And the third item is a copy of the off-campus parental permission form that we talked about. I told you I would send you a copy of that. And we're scheduling at this point in the next agenda on August 12th. Jeff Collins will be here to talk about off-campus privileges, and he will also talk about the lunch program. And I had put in my superintendent notes that if you have other items that you'd like him to address, if you could get those to me before, he will be here to make a brief presentation about those items and answer questions from the board. We also have Pat Lasker, I believe, at that meeting.
You do?
I'm sorry, Susan Burrell. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's Jeff Collins and Susan Burrell. Let's talk about technology.
So you're asking other members if they have anything that you want to ask Mr. Collins to forward to you?
That'd be great. Thank
So
you.
he can be prepared?
But this
Okay.
this off-campus permission form is just so you see what parents sign for seniors and some juniors, what they need signed to be able to leave the school premises at lunchtime.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else under other? No, I see nothing. Number 2, recognition of staff and students. What do we have this evening?
We have no personnel issues. We're saving all the personnel, any resignations or anything until the next board meeting.
Okay, great.
Nominations as well.
Steve?
Okay, at this stage of the game, it's very early in the process of closing the year and starting another one, so I'm prepared to give you an oral report on order of magnitude on confirming some of the highlights that I've been going over the last 2 or 3 reports. As far as in the general fund, items being over of any great magnitude, the out-of-district tuition areas, we knew that had the potential, and that did occur. The maintenance budget is going to be approximately $100,000 over. However, to offset that, we did have some savings in some salary and benefits, some that we planned on, some that we didn't plan on, because we knew that there were a couple of items that we didn't have covered based on changes. For example, we had the PEEP rent and a couple of other things. We saved some special ed salaries and benefits, which went towards offsetting the out-of-district tuition lines. The biggest savings again this year was the energy savings, mainly at the high school due to the reasonable winter and the favorable contract that we got into for gas prices early on, and the change that we made partway through the season. But a lot of that goes towards the efforts of the maintenance staff and the school staff to be as frugal as possible with heat and air conditioning and lights. And I think we're also getting a better handle on how to keep the settings of the new equipment at the high school adjusted to meet the seasons and the needs of the students and the staff. And that sometimes does take a period of time to after the commissioning to tweak those programs to the specific activity patterns of your particular school. There are a number of other areas of small savings and some offsetting ones where they were slightly over. At this point, I would like to maintain some of those and leave them as over so that it's easier to point out in future budget years where perhaps we didn't have a good handle on what we actually spent. And my feeling is if we spend all year long transferring from one line to the next to make the negatives go away, it makes it harder to come up with the picture. So my goal in 2009 is with the new reporting structure and the plan that I'm putting together, having the comparison to plan, and if a line runs negative, we may in fact just leave it negative so that we can have a better budgeting standpoint to work forward. What I'll do as far as the plan goes, we're working on coming up with a 5-year average of certain items to be able to put that together. So I'll keep it like a rolling 5-year average of how we do on the particular sections that we have on the report currently, and use that as the plan, the basis for the start of the plan. And if we find that there are specific items where that goes contrary to history, then we'll make those changes at the beginning of the year. So as far as the general fund goes, I believe that we're going to be in good shape. We will have enough in savings if you take all the small pieces together and what's left over from the energy savings to transfer to cover the shortfall in Fund 27, Cost Center 207, which we've known was coming all year long. The other activities in Fund 27, PASS is doing fine. All the other activities in there are all good. The only one where we have an issue is 207, which we knew we would, and this is the transition year, so that next year we've built into the budget enough to cover that up front. As far as the grant funds all appear to be tracking as we expected. Hot lunch is still a little too close to call, although I expect that based on the reports that I ran today in preparation for an audit visit tomorrow, for our food service program, we actually have a separate audit that we do every year, and then that's the basis that we give to the city auditors, Melanson and Heath. So he'll be here tomorrow, and I was running some reports, and it appears that our expenses are slightly ahead of revenue, but I don't think it's a whole lot yet. But when we get done working with him tomorrow, we'll have a better idea, because we have some adjustments to do for yearly inventories and the commodities adjustments, which we make every year. So that does have an effect on it. But I think we're, all in all, nothing, no major problem there, just what we expected, the pressure of the higher food costs and cutting the labor down as low as we can cut it and still maintain a program at this stage is probably the best we can hope for. I would, again, like to entertain the idea of if I can figure out a way to do it that's palatable to the board for next year, is to try to come up with a little relief for the food service program if the food costs continue to increase. They still may outstrip our planned increases by raising the food, the hot lunch prices. So we'll have to play that by ear. But there are across the state and across New England, a number of districts either have already made some changes to their programs or are considering it or partial. One idea possibly is because Pat is technically an administrator on part of the administrative team, that we would pull Pat's salary or part of Pat's salary out of the food service budget and put it into the central office administrative budget, which would give us some breathing space. So that's one possibility. So I'll keep working on ideas, and I'll keep you updated.
Questions?
Steve, for the fiscal year 2008, 2009, we'll begin to see the new format
Yes.
for the financials?
Yep, we're working on that. We're going to have it set up for when we give you the July report. It'll be into the new format with the plan for July. Yep.
Good, thank you.
That's the plan right now.
I'm just curious. When we budgeted for next year, many conditions like the price of gas, cost of transportation, those were at a more reasonable price. So we're going to be starting off in a really tough spot.
Well, it's certainly going to be a challenge right off the bat to try to predict some adjustments based on the city mileage reimbursement for travel just went up again, and we had a couple of increases last year, which
That helps.
we hadn't put in the budget.
Right.
So that helps the individuals, but doesn't help my budget any necessarily. Fortunately, that's not a humongous portion of our budget. I mean, the biggest pieces to this would be, if we end up having a harsh winter, and in spite of the contractual agreements we have on gas, if those continue to,
That's the biggest concern.
that's the biggest one. That's the one where we either have the biggest savings or the biggest hurt, depending on conditions, mostly which we don't control.
I'm just curious, how does the city, do they try and get a fixed price for their gas usage?
What we've done, and I don't know whether the school department led the way or the city led the way. I think the school department did. I think Peter did that, is we work with a firm called Metro Media, and so we still pay the delivery charge to the local vendor, but we actually buy the product. And so we have a 2-year agreement. We're starting the second year of that. And what we ended up doing is going with an adder above market to a certain point in the year, and then they call up and say, okay, now's the time to lock in for the rest of the year, which we've done every year since I've been here, and saved considerable amount of money by doing that. So we've had a very good relationship with Metro Media, and
And that contract covers the whole city?
we actually have two contracts sort of tied together. The school department has one just because of the volume that we have, and the billing, it makes it separate, but it really is like one overall agreement, basically, with two subcomponents to it, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Is it my understanding that the school buses are part of the bus companies, that's their situation, and the gas that they use, part of the contract?
Yes, yeah.
So that's not our concern? I mean, it is,
Well,
but
it is our concern because our contract does have a clause that says if it goes above a certain price, they have the right to, and I don't know the exact wording in each contract. I can
You know
tell
the
you that
amount?
at the special ed contract this year, that fuel adder was exercised, and that when it's reached a certain price, we shared the burden of the increase. For the regular buses, we have not had that fuel adder added on. I hope we don't. But we're also, working with them to try to make sure that if we can switch over to bio, if that ends up working. I know the city started out with a pilot program, and they were able to switch all their diesels over to
of them, right.
biodiesel. If we actually owned our buses then it would be different. Right now, it's a leased service situation, so it's a negotiated situation to be able to, I can't just turn around and say, you got to use biodiesel tomorrow. But we're certainly working towards that end, as is the bus company. I've talked to Howard Anderson a number of times, and I'm going to meet with him at the end of the month again to see if there's any progress. Because other districts in the state have been trying to do the same thing, so.
Thank you.
Kent?
Two things, just to follow up on the buses. They have the privilege, if they wish to exercise it, to purchase from the city yard. Is that correct under the contract? If they choose to purchase it on their own, then which is what they're exercising or had exercised in the past, right?
Well, I think it was a situation where we said that we would prefer, if you're going to hit us for the adder, then you would buy it from the city.
That's correct, yeah.
So I think that's probably held off the additional cost.
So they would have to use ours and then purchase.
Which
from
would, which would increase the administrative burden for them to a certain degree, so.
And back under what Dexter was asking, under the city buildings, the school did lead the way in 96 into 97. We ran an audit, and I can't remember it was an energy audit with, I want to say, it wasn't Hewlett Packard, it was out of Massachusetts, Johnson & Johnson. They came in and did it, and with Peter Torrey, they did a conversion, because we had buildings that were still running on oil at that time, and with them doing the conversion, we entered into this agreement that has been in place. I'm going to say, I think it went into effect in 99 or 98, and Peter did an outstanding job, because it didn't cost us anything to convert whatever buildings had to be converted, and it didn't cost us anything where any gas lines had to go in at that time, which was quite a savings. And then we had the add-on savings. Obviously, they're still making money off you, but
Sure. I think they started off the contract that it went year to year, and this last year was the first time that we entered into a multi-year agreement.
good.
So far it's worked well.
Sherry?
Is that same with the busing then when it comes to athletics and after-school activities? Bus situation, or is that when we use those buses, is it under a different rotation clause
no,
and
the-
different gas prices?
The field trips and the athletic trips, by and large, go with the same vendor. I believe there's a clause that says if they are unable to provide enough due to volume, that we could have the option to go with another vendor, on an intermittent basis. I do know that a couple of the trips, a different bus was used for a couple of athletic trips, and it was more expensive, but the boosters paid for that difference.
Okay.
So, by and large, we use the same one when we can, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I don't, I know on television you can't see, but there's nobody in the audience. So I would say that there would be no public commentary unless the press would like to. No, okay. Don't be shy. Okay, moving on to the agenda. This is a light night. So we have the date selected for the retreat, August 2nd. It'll be from 8:30 in the morning till 3. I'm sure Bob will remind you too, but I'll remind you as well, since I'm guilty, I have not gotten in my little sheet filled out to Bob about what your short and long-term concerns are. So if you haven't, like me, then let's just try to do it as soon as possible. Or sooner.
Thank you. Or sooner.
Or sooner. Okay. Anything under other? Okay, Rebecca?
Can you just go over the date for we've come up with a date for the work session, and that's July,
August.
August
August.
5th.
August 5th.
August 5th.
August 5th.
And that will be posted. That is here, that is televised.
And that's a work set. And then the 12th is a regular
It's
school
a
board
regular
meeting?
school board meeting.
Okay. And then I don't know if this is the right time, but I have a question about the off-campus.
Sure. About something, meaning about the
The
under
off-campus.
communications,
yeah.
that issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know if we were discussing that later in the agenda. I'm just curious.
You aren't. We were going to wait till Jeff comes, but if you have
Jeff comes.
questions.
I do have a question. I'm actually not going to be here at that meeting. I'm just wondering what our liability is if a student is in an accident or.
Well, that's a good question. That's why, this is one of the reasons why we're talking about this and have several times. And maybe what we could do is, as part of the presentation, is get a legal opinion,
Okay.
so we know exactly what that is.
And then the other, since I'm not going to be here, could I do the handy dandy phone in that Mitch and Leslie did for that meeting?
I think that was a special case because it was a joint city council school board
Okay.
session. Okay. Any committee reports?
There are no
Yes,
committee
sorry,
reports.
Ken. Yeah.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Lister, Russ Wilson, and Kenny Lynchy. Trying to think, did I miss anybody this morning? There were about 5 or 6 of us down there that finally, after 7 years of the placement of the athletic complex rock that was supposed to be done, that will hold different plaques dedicating, was put in place down there. And would look nice once they grass it in and have it, but it really makes the entrance different. And I do want to thank Bob and Kenny and Russ Wilson for taking the time today to be there this morning and getting the rock in place.
And may I just add one name? Peter Anania.
Oh, Peter, and thank you.
Peter Anania was instrumental in.
Yeah, Peter actually purchased, thanks, Bob. Peter actually went out and helped purchase it, and again, it starts to beautify an area that looks like a desert.
Thank you. So there are no committee reports for tonight. Pretty much that's our meeting. Just looking ahead, if you'd like to stay longer, Dick. To August 12th.
It's kind of sad, it's so short.
Right. Just to reiterate that Susan Burrell, Director of Technologies, will come talk to us, update us on the plan, so we have a sense of where the technology plan is, and also talk a little bit about Infinite Campus and maybe even a little about virtual high school, depending on how much time she has. Yes, Sherry.
When you do see other under next agenda, I would like to comment.
Jeff
you
Collins
there
will
yet?
talk to you. Yes, we're there right now.
Okay, see, I have a few things from our minutes in our meeting from June 24th. First, it was that Mrs. Laska stated that she met with Jeff and some of the reasons why students don't purchase school lunch, and she wants to survey the students through Infinite Campus. So I'd really like it if she was here, considering Jeff and Sue are both supposed to be here at our next meeting, then that's what she wanted. So I'd kind of like her to have her 2 cents worth if the other two are here, and that's what she's trying to get together with Jeff on, Susan with, to see if that's possible, or if Jeff and Sue can give us the answer without Pat, that's fine, but I'd like.
The answer
Pat's
to the
2 cents
question
worth.
of, is it possible to survey the students using Infinite Campus to get feedback about the lunch program?
And will she be able to do it for this next year? Yes.
I think that's just
Is that a board
question.
issue or an
No.
administration issue? That's,
Could I suggest that that's one of the questions that I can pass on to them, that we can maybe talk to Susan Burrell about, and then once that's done, come back to you with the results?
Okay.
If you're interested.
That's fine, because that leads me to my next one,
Okay.
which is Vice Chair Restano stated that a work session would be scheduled before the start of school to include Mrs. Laska, board members, school principals, and administration about that same topic. So I'm actually tired for the 2.5, how long have I been on the board? For the 2.5 years I've been on the board, I've been trying to address lunch issues and the scheduling of lunches and surveying of students. I'd actually like to see it accomplished before I get off the board, whether that's another 1.5 years or another 4 years after that. So if she's not necessarily needs to be here, I'd like Jeff and Sue to at least have all of Pat's info with them so that they would be able to answer without her. Because I really don't think there's enough hours in the day for us to schedule another work session for this issue. But if they're here to discuss lunch privileges, then I would like all of Pat's information here about lunch.
Then we'll make that part of their report. That's what I was asking for before.
Okay, well, you have all mine right now.
I got it, thanks.
fair
Okay.
enough.
Any other?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sorry, I'm going to keep it with me for another 1.5 years.
No, your point's a good one.